All right, so today I'm going to be talking about body clipping horses in winter to improve their thermoregulation. So thermoregulation in horses is done through convection, radiation, evaporation, and respiratory losses. And just as a reminder, convection is the transfer of heat as water or air moves across the body's surface. And then the radiation is a transfer of heat produced by organisms via electromagnetic waves. And then evaporation is the loss of heat from liquid to gas. And here we're going to be doing evaporation of sweat. And on average, horses have an internal body temperature at a range of around 38 degrees Celsius, meaning that's where they're going to be most comfortable.
And what is that in degrees Fahrenheit?
I believe it's 100.4.
Okay.
So their thermoregulation in the winter changes a little bit. So as an adult horse, they have a lower critical temperature, which is the lowest temperature at which they're going to be functioning, I guess, as best they can. And it's around negative 15 degrees Celsius. And then yearling horses are going to have a lower critical temperature of around negative 11 degrees Celsius if fed ad lib, meaning if they're fed when they're hungry, or 0 degrees Celsius if they're limit fed energy for moderate growth, meaning they're fed enough food to keep their growth up, but they're not being fed enough to where they're gaining weight or losing weight. And in order to maintain body temperature, horses will grow thicker coats and increase their insulation via photoperiodism and piloerection. In photoperiodism, they're going to increase the how thick their coats are when it's winter, as in they're going to have less light in the winter, so they're going to grow thicker coats. And then piloerection comes into play because during the summer they're going to use piloerection to make the hair stand up on their skin so that the airflow is increased, versus the winter they're not going to use piloerection because they want the hair to lay flat and insulate them more. Their skin will also produce more grease so that they don't get wet on rainy or snowy days, so the grease will act as an insulator as well. Their arteries go through vasodilation and vasoconstriction, so either increasing or decreasing blood flow to their skin. And they will increase their feed intake by 0.2 to 2.5% more energy for maintenance per 1 degree Celsius drop in outside temperature below their LTC. So once their LTC goes down, they're going to increase their feed intake.
Before you go on, now when you have piloerection, that makes the hair stand up and it gives them more insulation. So I think that happens in the winter time. The hair stand up and they get a insulating.
From what I read, it was opposite.
Okay, so we'll have to check that out.
They may have been wrong.
Yeah.
So
Usually in like humans, when you get cold, you have these goosebumps, and that's because the hair rises and tries to have a still air.
Okay.
And then we'll maybe have to resolve that. But a lot of animals, when the hair is down, that doesn't then have that
thicker
layer of insulating air. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, sure.
Later.
So what happens to horses during exercise, because horses have a high metabolic capacity in the smaller surface area, it makes it harder for them to let go of heat. And so when they exercise, 20% of their metabolism is used by the muscle cells for work, and then 80% becomes heat. And so they have to get rid of that somehow. So the skin blood flow increases by taking their internal body heat and moving it to the surface of the skin. But if they don't have enough vasodilation, then they'll start sweating to get rid of more heat. And fun fact, horses and humans sweat the most out of all endotherms. And so one way to fix this is to body clip. And so because horses grow thicker coats in the winter and produce more grease, it's harder to maintain them because as the grease mixes with the sweat, it's going to create mats, and obviously that's a health issue. And then horses that get wet from sweat, water, or snow are going to be more prone to wind chill because the greasy insulating coats will just accentuate it more. And they won't be able to stay warm in this state and will lead to illness because of wind chill. So clipping the winter coats in horses is done so that it helps them lose heat, and it also makes grooming easier. But keep in mind that because you are getting rid of their hair, you are going to need to blanket them or put a sheet on them so that they can maintain their body heat. So there are two popular types of body clipping. There's the strip clip, which goes from the jugular to the underside all the way to the private parts. And then the trace clip, which is goes from the jugular down the sides, on the underbelly, and to the top of the legs. This clip was actually done because the harness traces, which are like the leather parts of harnesses that would go around the chest of the horse and the sides, were areas that would produce more sweat. And so then by getting rid of the hair on these areas, then it would make it easier for them to cool off or get rid of the sweat so that they wouldn't have the wind chill effect that I was talking about earlier. And these are my sources.
Okay, so this was really talking about like working horses, basically, right?
Yes. So here, as previously said, so the strip clip is done more for horses with light exercise because they don't sweat as much, whereas the trace clip is more for horses that are going through a lot of hard work all the time. So, for example, I'm on the equestrian team, so our horses use the trace clip because they're getting ridden every day, 3 times a day for at least an hour.
So even in the winter, they're making a lot of heat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Because a lot of times you don't think of clipping horses in the wintertime, you know, if they're not doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
But you're talking about working horses.